Welcome to Dark Rule Stories, where every rule exists for a reason. Break it and face what should never be found. They told me the rule on the evening I arrived, when the sun was already leaning low and the fields were turning the color of old copper. After sunset, Mr. Hale said, resting both hands on the fence rail, "You don't go past the barn. Not for animals, not for noise, not for curiosity." He didn't sound threatening. Worse, he sounded tired. The farm sat miles from the nearest town, surrounded by flat land and wind that never fully stopped moving. My rented room was above the tool shed, close enough to smell hay and oil, far enough from the farmhouse to feel separate. I had come here to reset, to work, to disappear for a while. Rules didn't bother me. Silence didn't either. "Why?" I asked. Mrs. Hale glanced toward the fields where the shadows were already stretching too long. "Because after sunset, things don't stay where they should." That was all they said. The first night I followed the rule easily. I ate alone, listened to the boards tick as the temperature dropped, and watched the sky bruise into purple through my small window. Somewhere beyond the barn, something metal clinked softly, like a loose chain nudged by wind. I told myself it was normal farm noise. By the third evening, I noticed patterns. The animals grew restless before dusk. The goats pressed together, refusing to face the far fence. The dog, an old mutt named Rowan, whimpered and crawled under the porch steps. Once the sun touched the hills, at sunset, a bell rang. Not loud, not mechanical. A single dull tone that seemed to come from the ground itself. That night, as I washed my hands at the outdoor pump, I heard my name. Soft, careful. "Hey, you." I froze. The voice came from beyond the barn, right where the fence line dipped into darkness. "I dropped something," it said. "Can you help me find it?" It sounded almost like me. Not exactly, but close enough to make my skin tighten. I remembered the rule. I remembered the way Mr. Hale wouldn't meet my eyes. The bell rang again, closer this time, and something shifted in the tall grass, waiting for me to decide where the rules were meant to be tested. I didn't answer the voice. My mouth had gone dry, and the pump handle slipped from my grip with a hollow clack that sounded far too loud. "Hey," the voice tried again, softer now. "You're right there. I can hear you breathing." That was impossible. I had stopped breathing the moment it spoke. The grass beyond the barn shifted, slow and deliberate, as if something were crouching low and moving sideways. I backed toward the tool shed door, every step careful, controlled. Rowan growled from under the porch, a deep sound I didn't know a dog that old could make. "Don't go in yet," the voice said. It sounded disappointed. "You always go in." My hand found the doorknob, cold, steady. I pulled it open and slipped inside, shutting it without slamming. I stood there in the dark, listening. Silence stretched, then the bell rang again, closer than before, close enough that I felt it in my chest instead of my ears. Something brushed the side of the shed. Once, twice, a slow drag, like fingers testing the wood. I didn't sleep that night. I sat on my narrow bed with the light on, counting the seconds between sounds. Around what must have been midnight, I heard footsteps circle the shed. Not heavy, careful, curious, then a whisper right beneath my window. "You didn't even look." Morning came suddenly, as if someone had flipped a switch. Birds returned, wind loosened. The fear thinned but didn't vanish. At breakfast I asked Mr. Hale about the bell. He froze mid-pour. "You heard it clearly?" he asked. I nodded, and a voice. Mrs. Hale set her cup down too hard. "Did it sound like you?" My stomach tightened. "Yes." They exchanged a look I didn't understand. Mr. Hale finally said, "It learns faster now." "What learns?" He stood up, signaling the conversation was over. "You followed the rule. That matters. But what is it?" I pressed. He hesitated at the door, then said quietly, "It's what grows when the farm has watched someone long enough." That afternoon I found footprints near the barn. They were mine, perfectly mine, facing away from the farm. I stared at the footprints until my eyes started to blur, hoping the shape would change if I looked long enough. Same worn heel, same shallow drag on the right foot. Even the small nick near the toe of my boot was there. They led toward the fence line, not past it, toward it. I followed them only a few steps before stopping. The air felt thicker the closer I got, like walking into warm water. My ears rang faintly, the way they do before a headache. I backed away, heart hammering, and the pressure eased at once. Behind me, the barn door creaked. I spun around. It hadn't moved. That evening, the Hales avoided my eyes. Dinner passed in near silence, broken only when Mrs. Haley finally said, "If it starts copying your habits, you need to be careful." "Copying how?" I asked. "Little things," she replied. "Your voice, your walk, the way you pause before speaking." Mr. Hale added, "That's how it decides if you're ready." "For what?" Neither answered. The sun slipped below the fields, slow and deliberate. The bell rang, closer now, almost inside my head. Rowan began to bark, sharp and panicked, until Mr. Hale shouted his name, and the dog fell silent at once. I went to my room early, but I didn't turn on the light. I stood by the window instead, staring at my own reflection in the glass. Behind it, the dark pressed close. Then the reflection blinked. I hadn't. My reflection smiled just slightly and raised its hand. Outside, beyond the glass, something raised its hand too. Same angle, same timing. A whisper slid through the crack in the window frame. "You walk like me now." I stumbled back, knocking into the bed. The whisper continued, calm and patient. "You look down when you think. You count when you're afraid. You don't like to be watched, but you always are." The bell rang again, not from the fields, but from right outside my door. Footsteps approached. Slow. Familiar. I pressed my palm over my mouth to keep from making a sound. The handle turned. Stopped. Then a knock. 3 soft taps. Exactly the way I knock. The knock came again. 3 soft taps. I didn't move. My legs felt hollow, useless, like they no longer belonged to me. The handle turned slightly, slow and careful, as if whoever stood outside already knew exactly how much pressure it took. On the other side of the door, something breathed, calm, steady, familiar. "You can open it," my own voice whispered. "You already know how this ends." The bell rang once more, not sharp this time, but low and gentle, like a lullaby sinking into my bones. The sound slid beneath the door and settled in my chest, heavy and warm. I swallowed. "What do you want?" I asked, my voice shaking. A pause, then softly, "To finish learning you." The handle stopped turning. Footsteps moved away, not toward the stairs, but toward the back of the shed, toward the barn. Silence followed, thick, waiting. Minutes passed before I dared open the door. The hallway was empty. The air felt thinner, drained, as if something had taken a final breath and left it behind. At dawn, I stepped outside. The fence gate near the barn was open. It had never been opened before. In the dirt were 2 sets of footprints walking side by side. They were perfectly identical. Same size, same weight, same worn heel. They led past the boundary, into the tall grass where the land dipped and vanished. "You shouldn't follow them." Mr. Hell stood behind me. I hadn't heard him come out. "It chose last night," he said quietly. "Chose what?" I whispered. He looked at me for a long moment, his eyes heavy with something like regret. "Which one of you gets to stay?" I turned to argue, to say I was right here, that I was real. But the words felt slow, distant, wrong. A strange lightness spread through me, as if parts of myself were missing. I looked down at my hands. They trembled, slightly out of time with my thoughts, like they were remembering a body they no longer fully belonged to. Then, from beyond the fence, a voice called out, clear, steady, confident. My voice, "Hey," it said gently, "you can come back now, it's safe." Mr. Hole didn't turn toward the sound, he kept his eyes on me. "The rule still applies," he said softly. "After sunset, you don't cross back." The sun slid lower, painting the fields gold, and somewhere beyond the farm, wearing my face perfectly, walking with my memories and my voice. Something smiled, because it had finally learned how to be me. If you enjoyed this story, subscribe. And if you carry a story you want told, email me at darkrulesstories@gmail.com.